What if Arya Stark never killed the Night King? Imagine a world where Arya Stark never kills the Night King. We all remember that heart-stopping moment when Arya, with all her skills honed over the years, sneaks up on the Night King and strikes the fatal blow. But what if that had never happened? What if Arya had missed her chance, or, even worse, failed to even attempt the attack? The entire battle would have played out differently. The Night King would have remained alive, his army of the dead continuing to grow, and the fate of Westeros would have shifted dramatically. This isn't just a small change. This one event could have completely altered the trajectory of the entire War for the Dawn. This theory has sparked plenty of discussions online, especially after a recent Reddit post that reimagines the outcome of the Battle of Winterfell had Arya failed. The idea is intriguing to say the least. If Arya hadn't dealt the killing blow, how long could the Starks and their allies have lasted against the Night King and his army of wights? The Battle of Winterfell was a grueling, desperate fight, but the death of the Night King turned the tide and allowed the living to fight another day. Without that, we would have seen a much darker version of events, one that possibly would have ended in the extinction of humanity in Westeros. The immediate question we must ask is, how could the living have survived without Arya's intervention? Let's revisit the situation before Arya makes her move. Setting the stage, the Battle of Winterfell. Winterfell, the ancestral seat of the Stark family, has always been a symbol of strength, honor, and resilience. For centuries, it has stood as a testament to the legacy of the North, with its walls protecting the Starks and their people from the harshest winters and most dangerous enemies. It was here that the Starks forged their identity as the protectors of the realm, defending their home from all who would threaten it. But in the Battle of Winterfell, all that would change. The stronghold, once a symbol of unwavering security, would become a brutal battleground, a place where the living fought desperately to hold their ground against an enemy that could not be reasoned with, that would not stop until the world had fallen into eternal darkness. The army of the dead, led by the terrifying Night King, descended upon Winterfell with a power that no one had ever seen before. The living, Jon Snow, Daenerys Targaryen, the Unsullied, and the Dothraki, rallied their forces in defense of Winterfell. Their shared goal was to keep the darkness at bay, to protect their world from being overtaken by the dead. They fought with everything they had, but it quickly became clear that they were outmatched. As the battle raged on, the wights, the reanimated soldiers risen from the dead by the Night King's dark magic, overwhelmed the defenders. No matter how many of the wights were cut down, more seemed to rise in their place, pressing the defenders back into Winterfell's courtyard. The air was thick with the stench of death as the wights flooded the stronghold, closing in on every direction. The sounds of battle filled the air, the clash of swords, the screams of men, the growls of the undead. Winterfell was no longer the home of the Starks. It had become a fortress under siege, its walls echoing with the cries of those fighting for their lives. The living fought back with everything they had, but it was clear they were outnumbered. The Night King's magic was too powerful, and his army was too vast. The defenses of Winterfell were cracking, and it was only a matter of time before the wights breached the walls entirely. Time was running out for the Starks and their allies. The living had no choice but to fight for their lives, hoping that somehow, some way, they could hold off the inevitable. Every moment felt like a desperate struggle to stay alive just a little longer. The wights kept coming, and with each fallen soldier, the Night King's power grew stronger. It became clear that only a miracle could shift the odds in the living's favor. They needed something, anything, that could turn the tide of battle in their favor. But with each passing minute, the chances of that miracle seemed to slip further away. The Night Kings marched south. As Winterfell fell, the Night King's forces began their march south, a terrifying wave of death that swept across the land. The living at Winterfell, left with no stronghold to hold and no army capable of opposing the Night King, were forced to retreat. There was nowhere to run, no place to hide. The Night King's power was growing with every passing day, and his army, now bolstered by the fallen defenders of Winterfell, marched on relentlessly. The once proud kingdom of Westeros, filled with light, life, and hope was now slipping into an abyss of darkness. The living had no time to regroup, no time to plan, only the grim realization that they were facing an unstoppable force. The Night King's march was not just a physical advance across the land. It was a march toward the extinction of life itself. Each town, city, and kingdom that fell before him only added to his growing army of the dead. The living had no way to stop him. The dragons, the greatest weapon the living had at their disposal, were powerless against the Night King's magic. With the fall of Winterfell, it seemed as though all hope had been extinguished. The Night King's army continued to swell, and there was no end in sight. The land that had once been full of life now stood on the brink of annihilation. Bran's involvement. Amidst this hopelessness, Bran Stark, the three-eyed raven, remained one of the last hopes the living had against the Night King. With his ability to see the past, present, and future, Bran possessed a unique and powerful knowledge that could potentially turn the tide of battle. However, his power came with limitations. While Bran could warg into animals and see visions of the past, his ability to directly confront the Night King was uncertain. He was disconnected from the physical world, his mind scattered across time and space. Bran could see the Night King's movements, but could he act on them? Could he find a way to stop the Night King? Or was his knowledge a double-edged sword, a tool that could be just as much a curse as it was a blessing? As Bran remained hidden in the crypts of Winterfell, his mind reached out further into the threads of time, desperately seeking a way to confront the Night King. The burden of his role as the three-eyed raven weighed heavily on him. He knew that his knowledge could be the key to stopping the Night King, but he was not sure how to unlock that knowledge or whether he even had the power to do so. Bran's connection to the Night King was distant and fragmented, and there was no guarantee that he would be able to find a way to stop the relentless advance of the dead. The Night King's increasing power. As the Night King marches south, his power only grows with each passing day. With every battle won and every city claimed, his forces become more formidable. The dead do not stay down. They rise again, joining his ever-expanding army. The living are caught in a vicious cycle, unable to make any lasting progress in the war. Every time they believe they've struck a blow against the Night King's forces, those very soldiers they've slain reanimate, adding strength to the enemy's ranks. This cycle continues to escalate, as there is no limit to the Night King's ability to turn death into a weapon. The longer the war drags on, the more futile the efforts of the living seem, as their armies dwindle and the Night King's rise becomes an overwhelming inevitability. Viserion, the once loyal dragon of Daenerys Targaryen, is now twisted into a tool of the Night King's malevolent will. This tragic transformation represents a profound shift in the balance of power in Westeros. Viserion's icy breath, once a symbol of strength and life, now spreads death and destruction. His power is not just that of a beast. It is a weapon of mass devastation, capable of obliterating entire armies and turning the tide of any battle. The sight of Viserion soaring across the sky, a dragon once loyal to the living, now wielding the forces of death, strikes fear into the hearts of all who see him. No longer an ally, the dragon becomes an unstoppable harbinger of doom, casting a shadow over the land and ensuring that no resistance can stand for long. The more the Night King's power grows, the more it becomes evident that he is no longer just a man, or even a creature of mere legend, but an unstoppable force of nature. He embodies the end of all things, the inexorable march of winter that devours everything in its path. The land itself begins to wither as he advances, withering crops, freezing rivers, and rendering the very earth inhospitable to life. His army, now an endless legion of the dead, grows stronger with each soul he claims, with no end in sight. If Arya Stark had failed to kill the Night King, Westeros would have been left to face a world of unimaginable horrors. The living would have fought on, but the odds would have been stacked against them. A prolonged war of attrition could have worn them down until there was nothing left to defend. Alternatively, the fall of Westeros might have been swift and certain, as the Night King's army consumed the land, leaving nothing but death in its wake. Arya's success changed the course of history, but without it, the world of Game of Thrones would have been lost. The Night King's rise would have been unstoppable, and the people of Westeros would have faced the cold, merciless grip of an endless winter. The smallest shift in fate can alter everything. And in this case, the smallest shift meant the survival of humanity. What if Arya had failed? It's a terrifying thought to consider, but it's one that shows just how fragile the world of Westeros truly was. So, what do you think? If Arya hadn't killed the Night King, what do you think would have happened next? Do you have your own theory on how the story could have unfolded differently? Or is there another what-if scenario you'd love to see explored? Drop your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. I can't wait to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this dive into the world of Westeros, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more theory videos, news, and deep dives. Thanks for watching, and I'll